welcome to another edition of Reptile Fight Club. Sorry, we've kind of been out of order a bit. We haven't been recording many shows lately. This is partly due to a few different things. On a sad note, Chuck is bowing out as the co-host, so I'm really sad to lose Chuck, and hopefully he'll make his way back someday. But for now, I am Chuckless again in Fight Clubville. But we do have a wonderful replacement for Chuck at this time, and my good friend Bob Rock, Rob Stone. Thanks for being here, and thanks for co-hosting for at least the foreseeable future. And we'll see how if Chuck ever decides to come back, his seat's always open. But
yep, just keeping the seat warm for him. Should he change his mind or circumstances or whatever? No worries at all.
Yeah. But Rob comes with a wealth of experience, very smart guy, good herping buddy. So it'll be fun to fight a bit with old Bob Rock, old Bobby Pebbles, as Schmitty calls him. I think that's still my favorite nickname for you. I hope you like it, but anyway.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
We've also got a recurring guest tonight, Dustin Grahn. Welcome back.
Hello. He's
another of our herping buddies, so I thought we'd start out with a nice, easy show with friends and get another episode in the queue here, and hopefully keep these going again. We'll see how the dynamics shift, or we won't have Chuck's witty humor for the show, but I'm sure Mr. Stone can fill in well there as well. But so yeah, today we're gonna talk a little bit about field collection. But I don't know, how are you guys doing? How's everything going with the collections and stuff? Dustin, how about you start? How you doing?
Yeah, things are going good. Finally slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
Not trying to spend every waking moment herping or cleaning reptiles.
Yeah, I imagine you have a little more free time in the winter.
Yeah.
When the field is not calling. Yeah. I know how it feels, but I'm itching to get back out there already, man. I don't know. I miss it already, but it is kind of nice to have that break. Yeah.
It'll be back soon enough.
Yeah, for sure. How was your season?
Pretty good.
Herping season last year.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Utah was a blast.
Yeah, that was a good trip.
That's a big highlight,
For sure.
Went a little lighter this year, but still got out with some good friends, saw some cool snakes. So,
What was your highlight in Arizona?
Probably the Obscurus. Or not Obscurus, sorry. I don't know why I said that.
I'm like, wait, you found Obscurus?
No, the Massasauga.
Massasauga, yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I've been looking into some Obscurus stuff, so.
Yeah. And you didn't get your car taken away or anything, so that's good.
Yeah.
You made it out there safe and made it back, finding Massasauga and not losing any equipment in the process, so that's good.
Yep.
When it was fun to hang out with you in Chicago, it was probably a little too late in the season, but I was thinking, man, wouldn't be too far to drive out and look for Massasaugas, but I didn't end up doing that at all, but that would have been cool. It was kind of a short trip. Yeah.
There's a little pond behind our hotel, so we went and looked for some garter snakes, but we didn't see anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard when you don't really know the area very well, and it's kind of late in the season. But yeah, someday it'd be nice to go out to Snake Road or something. That'd be a cool trip.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of
it's not too far from there.
Yeah, one of those things you got to do at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it was definitely a great trip in Utah. That lyre snake you found was a pretty big highlight, and yeah, we we had a good trip with a lot of the rare stuff. I can't believe we didn't see any gopher snakes. That was really weird. No gopher snakes to be found, and we were in their habitat pretty much the whole trip, and they're one of the almost gimmies, and I just can't believe we didn't find one.
I know. I really wanted to see one too.
Yeah. Well, we'll give it another shot. I'm sure we'll have plenty of chances to find them.
We got to find more pyros up there anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. You got to find one when I'm there, or another pair. That would be cool. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Yeah, these guys found a pair of pyros breeding in the middle of the trail while I was still at home. I hadn't left yet, so Rob called it. He's like, "We're gonna find a pyro while you're sitting at home," and he called a shot, and they found him. So, yep, just more reasons to get out there. But yeah, I'm already making plans, getting out there. So hopefully I can do a good bit of herping this year. Me and my wife are going to go out to Baja in January, kind of towards the end of January, go look for whale sharks. So not quite herping, but it should be cool. It's kind of a bucket list item. La Paz.
Nice.
So yeah. We'll be on the Baja side. So I don't know. I'm curious to see, like, I need to scope it out a bit and find out if there's many records during the winter. But yeah, hopefully I can sneak in a little bit of herping. We won't have cars or anything, but yeah, it's down there a ways. So you'd think it would be somewhat, but it looks like the water's a little chilly, especially considering we were on the other side, on the mainland side, and it was like bathtub warm in October, but I think it cools down a bit between October and January. So unfortunately we won't have bathtub water, but it should be cool regardless. So yeah, looking forward. Luckily, Heidi's passport came through really quick with no issues, so she's set and we're ready to go. So I'm about ready for a passport update. It's kind of crazy that how fast that comes around, but yeah. Missing Australia too. I got a notice from Luke or a message from Luke over in Australia. He just did a South Australia trip and found a bunch of cool stuff, and he's showing me all the Delaney knobtail geckos that he found. I'm like, come on, I was right there, and it was just cold. There was nothing moving, so that was kind of a bummer. He found like 5 or 6 of them, just out on a night of looking. So I guess they're pretty easy to find as long as it's not 15 degrees Celsius. So give it another shot. Yeah, but that was a cool place. It'd be a good one. I'm waffling on the 50th, my 50th birthday trip over there. I'm thinking Central Australia is kind of calling my name. There's so many targets over there. I don't know if you guys would be up for Central Australia or you like set on Western Australia.
I mean, Australia's Australia.
No, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. Central has got some really cool stuff, cool scenery, cool reptiles in general. So a lot of my favorites. I need to find a bredli and several other
multifasciata, right? Have you
multifasciata and a Western occipitalis, a bunch of different the Western Centralian blue tongues, the Centralian knobtails, Centralian pythons. So many Centralian things I need to find. So yeah. But I don't know. I love the canyons of Central Australia. It's a pretty cool spot. So I think it'd be a good trip all around. But a little more logistically difficult, but
feasible.
Yeah, but not
easier to do.
Yeah, not quite as far as flying over to WA, but yep. So I don't know. If you feel strongly the other way, let me know. I'm sure you can talk me into something else if you really want to. But I'm thinking Central Australia is calling my name. Especially Matt Tejan was just over there.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, I saw his pictures.
I know. He found so many cool things. He got 3 or 4 glebopalma. That was pretty sweet, that'd be a good one to see.
And the Gillens.
Yep. And he found some Centralian knobtails, and I don't think you got a Centralian python, right? You didn't get any Bredli.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But yeah, cool spot. So I think that's kind of what's pulling me at this stage. I haven't been since 2010, so it's been a little while. About time to go back. Yeah. So anything else exciting in your reptile lives?
I don't think so. Just planning out trips, man. You know, getting excited for it in the downtime, and all good. The Florida trip you missed out on because you had to go to Australia. You know, well, you guys went to the gecko thing, and then you know, had to go to Australia, I guess. But yeah, that was a good trip. Fun to go out. You know, always fun to be with Nipper and Eric and Phil. You know, it's a good group. But and then a lot of time with KJ, meeting KJ, and then hanging out with him quite a bit. And yeah, so that was really good. That's
cool. Yeah, I don't think I've met KJ that I can remember. Sorry if I've met you before, KJ, but if you listen. But yeah, it's that pine snake was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was definitely a that was a perk. And then where we were at, for the most part, we didn't have service, but at that point, and we were supposed to meet KJ out there, like he was going to come up later in the afternoon, and we were so out of pocket on the service that we just weren't able to connect. So it'd be into and out of service and trying to figure out where we were at based on texts and all that. And Phil's service came through when we were at the Pine Snake, and so Phil answered the phone, and KJ said, "Where are you guys at?" And the answer was, "We are at the Pine Snake." And you can imagine, even a jaded Central Florida herper, KJ was definitely excited for us. So that was really good.
Yeah, it's nice to knock out those more difficult targets for sure. But so yeah, I guess I'm curious what your highlight of the year was, Rob, for finds in this last season.
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's tough. There's been a ton of cool stuff, as you guys were, mentioning. The Utah trip was fantastic. That Gila monster that you found, just in terms of, I know, well, for all of us, right, the photos that we were able to take, I know are special to all of us out of that one. That was a stunning animal, and really able to take special artistic shots of that animal and stuff. So that's definitely up there for sure.
Yeah, you can't beat that backdrop of the red rocks. Like, I mean, the first one's definitely cool, of course, but it was in like under a sagebrush or something, kind of in the dirt. You know, it's not really as photogenic as one sitting on the slick rock, the red rocks. So, yeah, I'd agree. That was one of my highlights.
And the time that went into that, right?
Yeah.
How much we were out there for it too was really cool as well.
Seeing Gila monster tracks,
that would definitely be up there.
Yeah. It's funny how they just sit and walk right over your tracks, and we're sitting there scanning so intently and missing the ones that are coming out right as we leave or something. I don't know. Maybe they're just, they know what they're doing, and they wait for the big monkeys to leave before they start cruising around. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And then the price, I guess, were cool too. And I was glad to just not die.
that was
when we were leaving
the
spot of the first/second one. Yeah, like right. So you guys had taken off, and then I thought, well, it can't be harder to go over the top, and then that was not correct. Yeah, at least with the line of approach that Tom and I had taken, that wasn't right. So, definitely reached the point in the venture where like surviving in one piece was the primary mission.
Yeah, it was a little sketchy, but what a cool. I mean, I don't know. I just love going to a spot that I guess is close to where you'd expect to find them, but far enough away that it seems a little more novel. Is that cryptic enough? But yeah, just kind of saying this looks like good habitat and checking it out and being right, I guess finding one. So that was definitely a thrill.
I think Rob and I also have an honorable mention of the Arizona Pyro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
that was super fun, man.
That was cool.
That was super fun,
man. You got double pyro.
Just the experience around the whole thing. No broken arms. Yeah,
no squashed heads.
Yeah.
Seemed dodgy for a second. Yeah.
Yeah, that story of you guys lifting the giant rock or stump or whatever, and don't let go. I've got the snake. Don't let go.
Yeah.
Don't squish me. Don't squish me, bro.
And they're all of our arms and your head, and it was pretty good. So it's like
the things we do.
We don't need to see what happens if you drop a 250-pound rock or whatever onto bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up going back down to St. George kind of later in the early fall, I guess, and taking a couple of those California Kings back down to close to where we found their mother and releasing them back into the wild. So that was pretty cool. I met another friend on the way down.
Anything else down there?
It was no, I wasn't down there for very long, and I only had maybe an hour. Yeah. I mean, I saw a side blotch lizard, which is pretty much a guarantee if you walk anywhere in the area, so you're gonna see a side blotch lizard. But I went out in the middle of the day, kind of released them into a nice crack or burrow that that would at least give them some security in the immediate future and let them kind of get their bearings and stuff. So hopefully it's a good spot. One was there. So it wasn't quite the same area that we found them in. It was a little bit away just because, where we found them was kind of in a neighborhood almost, really close to people. Right. And so I put them a little closer to where we found the Gilas.
Slightly further.
Yeah. Okay. In that area. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of want to see a cow king in that red rock habitat. That would be cool. So maybe releasing a couple in that area. So
we'll just have to check in on them.
Yep,
when we go in June.
Yeah. So pretty nice experience, I guess, to be able to put some back, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. But man, what a great year, and I'm looking forward to more. I think for me, I really enjoyed seeing those Gidgee skinks. That was kind of a lifer for me, and seeing those walk around, crawling around on the rocks and stuff. And especially since the conditions weren't great, and we were almost left because it was kind of cold, and we could kind of see the sun trying to make its appearance, and then it ended up coming through, and they started coming out a little bit to bask. And so Jordan spotted one. And as I was going over to look at that one, there was another one just on the next crack over. So it was pretty cool. Those
conditions sound kind of like our Labor Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of waiting. Will it come through and peek on us and all that?
Exactly.
So, that's very cool. And 40 shinglebacks? Holy moly.
Yeah. They were all over the place. It must be prime time for shinglebacks. So might not find geckos, but we saw about 40 shinglebacks. Yeah, it was that's
crazy.
And we stopped for every stinking one of them. It was like, they just don't get old. I don't know. It was so cool. And
they're cool. I can't even imagine one, let alone 40.
Yeah. And I talked who was that? Somebody on the message board was like, I drove up from, this spot to this spot in South Australia, and I saw about 20 shinglebacks, on my drive. And I'm like, okay, is that like exaggeration? And no, it was not exaggeration. Right. It was actual 20 shinglebacks, so yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, there's something about seeing one of those things just making its way across the road. Sorry, go ahead.
100%. The part that's so crazy about that is just they're given their low fecundity, right? The number in the population to support seeing that must be insane.
Yeah. And they must, I mean,
which is awesome.
Yeah. They've got to have a pretty long lifespan, and they've got to have pretty low predation rates, I'd imagine, especially where they're out in the middle of the day, just cruising across the road. They're pretty tough. I mean, they've got some pretty thick scalation, and they can get a little defensive if they need to. Yeah. So they're already kind of starting out with in good condition. So it just must be a factor of them living a long time and being able to produce and just have a good healthy population, and maybe low competition from their cohorts. I don't know, since they're vegetarian and
that mullock. That's another.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the Central Australia Terrible could be able to take that one, but yeah, that's such a cool animal.
Yeah, it's always nice when you kind of do your due diligence. You find a spot where they've been found before, and you're like, okay, let's hit this. And nobody really, they checked our work, I guess you could say, but nobody really told us where to go. But they saw, okay, you're going there. Right. That's a good spot to go, and so that gives you a little more confidence. But where we'd struck out on some of the other targets, it's like maybe. Hopefully we'll find one. And sure enough, it's unmistakable, like that little gait they have and, kind of that chameleon walk and the tail kind of arched up a little bit. That's, you see it from a mile away. It was pretty exciting. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's super fun too, to be in, at least the way I like to do the trips, right, is to exactly that process you just described, where it's not saying, hey, tell me where to go. It's instead trying to suss it out for yourself. And then, if you can have a little audit on that, that's pretty good, And that was basically our Florida situation as well, in terms of, and I think, I'm sure, everyone who has a local area, or whatever that they're known for, it happens. But I know KJ just gets hammered for that stuff. So that initially he was, I told him we were coming, and he was like, oh, okay. And I think it was clear that he wanted to vet the preparation that I had done, and that made a huge difference. And then the amount that he wanted to talk about and come out with us and, all those things. And I totally respect that. I think that makes a ton of sense, that it's like he doesn't want to just, it's not as fun if you just get spoon-fed all that stuff. Half the fun is putting in the work.
I agree. I think we think on the same wavelength in that regard, because, I just can't imagine like going on a tour and having somebody like, here is this and here's this. And now everybody get in the bus. We're going here. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm too selfish with my time. I want to do it my way or something.
That's another fight, future. I'll stake it out here now, so we have to do it, but that'll be a future Fight Club topic, is sort of the notion of the grand tours or these big groups versus more so the way that we tend to do these things, in terms of, I get that there are some places where the feasibility is really hard if you're not you kind of the logistics, right?
Yeah. Like a Texas situation
I just can't imagine going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Yeah, right.
I guess on one of these, like, oh, I'm a group of 20 people, and then it's like, well, did you even see, any notions around, well, were you the person who saw it, and that extra joy that comes to you if you're totally divorced from the process of even figuring out where you're going, you're just along for the ride. For me personally, it wouldn't bring me any joy.
Yeah. Now that said, I was looking. Oh well, we can save it for the debate. So I'll save that. I'll put that in my pocket for when we do that fight. Yeah, maybe that can be the next one.
Take that forward.
Yep. I agree. But yeah, regardless, that's I think and I think this last trip kind of sealed it. I did have fun going out with some of the locals and having them show me around. It was really a nice time, but in Australia and kind of the Sydney area. But there was something about getting in your rental car and just driving and trying to find, the stuff that you researched and tried to look at, finding. So. And then when you find one or two or three of your targets, that's a great feeling. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we ready to fight?
Yes, we are.
Okay, let's do this thing. So today we're going to be kind of talking about the pros and cons, the ethics of field collection. And I think we've probably all been there, all collected something in the past. So, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this topic. And I thought, Dustin, he's a great field herper. He probably has an opportunity to collect a lot of stuff if he wanted to. I know he's got the collection permit to make everything legal and all that good stuff. So, but, I'm sure he doesn't collect everything he finds, or he'd be overrun with animals in his home. So, but I thought Dustin would be a good one for this fight. And Rob has volunteered to moderate this one. So I'm sure we'll have some good insight from him on both sides. So, so we'll go ahead and between Dustin and I, we'll flip the coin to see who takes what side. Either, yay, I think we should all field collect, or nay, probably a bad idea or something. So, okay, go ahead and call it.
Heads.
It is tails.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the nay. You shouldn't really field collect. So, I'll take that side of it, and I'll let you give us a start. I'm gonna pull a Chuck on you and let you start it out.
All right. Well, as we are all, or I guess pretty much everyone listening to this podcast is a keeper of reptiles. All of those had to have come from wild caught animals. We don't just automatically have these animals in captivity.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, look where we're at now, some of the crazy animals that we have. Yeah. I will say that I don't think you should collect everything that you find. Mm-hmm. I do have some animals that I collected, maybe 1% of what I've seen in the wild, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't collect to resell or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking to make $1, just an animal that I really enjoy. And usually in a situation where it's beneficial for the animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that really just rubs me the wrong way is kind of that collection just to flip them, just to resell them for a quick buck, And I think it was made very apparent on that trip to Texas back, when was that? A few years ago, 2019, 2020, somewhere around there.
June of 20.
Yeah. And we were there was some other group out there. There were about, there were a couple carloads of people, and we kept running into them, and they just were leaving a spot, and we were just getting there, and we were looking for copperheads and rock rattlesnakes, and they had collected a copperhead and a rock rattlesnake. Now, and they were basically on a collection trip. I think we probably interrupted some of those some collection of some animals because
at the previous spot.
Yeah. We were in a state park.
Because you weren't supposed to collect.
Exactly.
That's where that lepidus, I'm still confident. We had a weird interaction with them. They left us with an animal.
Yeah.
And then they let us pass them, and they were behaving super strangely. And the lepidus that they had looked a lot like what is there, and not no records from the place then that they pretended to have found it. So I'm pretty sure we could have seen that too, which would have saved me another West Texas venture in terms of the crotalid species list. But no, it had to go in the bucket because it was, had to be resold for $75 to be, not properly cared for.
Yeah.
So,
and the thing
salty.
The thing that killed me too was them talking about the copperhead. They're like, it's technically a different one, but it looks exactly like the ones we collect. And, I collected like 20 of them last week from this property near my house or whatever. And I'm just like, if you're going to collect 20 that look exactly the same, what do you need to take one out of the wild from here? That's just really bugs me. And then it took away our opportunity to see that animal because we were 10 minutes too late, to the spot. So we didn't get to see it. So, and it was just like crawling basically through the parking lot. Somebody was just hanging out in the parking lot and spotted it kind of on the verge next to the parking lot. So it would have been a pretty easy find, just parking the car and walking through there. You might have stumbled on it. So, anyway, yeah. So that's one of the big reasons that I'm kind of a little against field collection, especially if it's just to flip the animal and just to make a buck. Now, I agree, we definitely have the animals in captivity that we have, and they originally came from the wild somewhere, but most of them we haven't had to take out of the wild for probably a good couple decades because they've been captive bred and, from those original founder animals. So I don't know. That's my biggest sticking point with wild collection is flipping animals and just selling them quick for a buck.
Yeah. Another good point would be adding new bloodlines into our already existing animals. Bringing in some wild caught fresh blood can help from bottlenecking our populations, making things a little bit healthier.
Yeah, I hear that. I agree. I think it is important, but I think the bottlenecking and inbreeding issues, at least for most of the stuff we keep in captivity, is we're a little overcautious in regard to that, And I guess I always use the Australian species that we have in the U.S. as kind of an indicator that that's probably where we've bred the same bloodlines for however many years they've been in the country, and we haven't seen too many huge issues. Although, if there is a negative gene in there, it's going to pop up and you're going to lose that population pretty quick. But for the most part, it seems to take at least many generations before you're going to see those effects. And with people's attention spans these days, who's taken their stuff out 5 or 6 generations, especially with something that can live 30 years, you can produce from that same pair for 20 so years. So I think, while there is a benefit of expanding your bloodlines, we could probably get by with not taking too terribly many out of the wild.
But there is still a need.
Yeah, and to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, to your point, Dustin, I do think there's some fairness, right, in saying that the real factor is the question of how many are we taking and for what motivation, right? Taking a singular animal or even a pair of animals, right, to have one of each gender to mix into your projects. Really, we're talking about a negligible effect versus exactly, Dr. J, the scenario you described in Texas, right, where it was just anything that could go into a deli cup was going into a cup. Those are really two different things. So I think fundamentally, that's probably more what this debate is about, because I know for the most part, all of us kind of, to the extent that it's sort of personal use, are probably amenable to that to some extent, at least in particular circumstances. But, the thing that I just toss this in there, right, as a third party on this would be to say my biggest concern with animals that I encounter and have a great experience with in the wild is the fear that at some point, eventually, based on life circumstances and whatever, that animal that I had a great experience with in the wild, right, that's necessarily temporary and fleeting. If I collect it and bring it home, I'm really running the risk that at some point that animal will become a burden based on my circumstance. And it's really, to me, a big concern will be that I'll ultimately cost myself that fleeting moment with the eventuality of it becoming a burden.
Yeah, that's definitely a risk, I think. Yeah. And I mean, once you've brought it into captivity,
it's,
right? Yeah. Once you brought it in captivity, it's not a great idea to release it back into the wild, because it could be carrying something you can't see, and it could result in an outbreak of some disease or another back in the wild population. So it's not a great idea to re-release stuff unless, you've taken efforts to make sure they're clean or they're very young animals or things like that. So, yeah. I don't know. That's a tricky subject. I think a lot of us have in our minds, and myself included, that it would be nice to give back, and that's kind of what I did with those California king snakes. And but there is a chance that could have a negative impact if things went wrong. And so I guess, considering juvenile animals in the wild have a very good chance of being picked off by a predator, especially if they're dropped into some area that they've never been before, from the safety of a nice cushy cage, and then they're put back into the wild. But I guess they all have that chance when they hatch out in the wild as well. And that's probably why you don't see a lot of juvenile animals in the wild, and they're pretty good at hiding out and avoiding those predators. But I don't know what else.
Or
What
even
other?
being hit by a car, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
That's part of the notion of taking one or a pair that probably makes it fine is that it's particularly if you road cruised it, it's like, well, all I've done is sort of move the timeline, right? Or move the eventuality. I guess you've cost a meal for a scavenger, right? That would pick it off, and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the scavengers down there are kind of out of proportion to what they probably should be, or that they're invasive, like the ravens down in southwestern Utah, where they just sit along. You can find rows of baby tortoise shells from the ravens that pick them up and eat them and drop the shells. It's pretty tragic. They're actually trying to control those cleanup crews because they're taking too much of the resource,
right.
And they're artificially supported from humans down in the area. So makes it a little tricky that way, I guess, too. Yeah, I agree with you in regards to the roadkill stuff. And frankly, I think there are some populations that could withstand some collection and not be affected too negatively. I think about shinglebacks, where you've got 40 within a 1 week trip, basically. In one stretch of road in Western Australia, I counted about that many dead on the road carcasses of shinglebacks. Now they probably stick around for quite a while. They don't degrade very quickly, and they probably have parts that will stick around for a decade or so. But that's a lot of dead animals in a short like a half mile area. So if they can take that much roadkill and we can still find 4 or 5 pairs, in the immediate vicinity, they're probably doing okay. And they could probably withstand a collection of a pair or two. But of course we didn't do that because it's illegal. But I'm just thinking, and over there, they're a very low dollar animal, but over here, that high demand and high dollar drives that illegal wildlife trade. So, they say we're trying to stop this, but then, kind of keeping the demand high and the supply low, they're kind of promoting that in some ways, I think, especially if they could release captive bred animals.
Definitely. That's its whole other topic, right? To your point, Dustin, too, I do think, as you hit on, that to some extent, right, this is just a situation of us externalizing our costs upon people elsewhere in the world, where there are a ton of wild-caught reptiles, but it's sort of treated as one thing if it's collected in Indonesia as opposed to, you collecting it yourself in Arizona, Justin, in Utah, that sort of thing, where it's like it might be permissible, but it sort of feels different to go to either, at a show or, dealing with an importer or whomever and saying, oh, well, I feel totally fine about this, but in a way that you would not feel totally fine about if it involved you actually finding and then picking it up, that sort of thing. Yeah. I do think there's something to that where we're sort of creating an artificial distinction between those two things that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, I think putting a dollar sign on an animal can also be sort of beneficial for them. In Indonesia, it creates purpose for these animals, I guess, other than just killing this snake. I can catch it and sell it, or I can catch it and export it to America, where these things are sought after, or these things can.
Or even promoting conservation ethic, right? In that same way of saying, like, I don't want to rip down the forest if I can get a sustainable use by, a small take.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's another tricky matter, if turning animals into commodities usually works out poorly for the animals because either they're sold into, pretty poor conditions. The collection methods are pretty primitive or damaging to the animals. They're noosing them and ripping them out of trees and stuff. So, they see them as a commodity rather than an important part of nature. And so they're not really gentle in their collection techniques. And so, the animals often don't live very long, especially some of these wild caught stuff from Indonesia that may be heavily parasitized or collected improperly or stored improperly before they're shipped out. And so, that results in, I don't know, it's a pretty bleak situation. Rob would probably know best, where he's worked for some of these importers or been closely associated with some for a number of years. But I don't know, I guess from the outside looking in, it seems like just like a steady rolling death march, for a lot of these animals. That's pretty tragic. So I think, promoting that and being involved in that, you see those sketchy dealers out there and they're still in business, and you're like, why are they still in business? Why don't we take a stand? Well, because they imported some rare reptile that somebody has to have, so they're going to look the other way at how sketchy this guy is and buy it from him anyway. We're promoting this nonsense to persist.
Well, that's why we got to vote with our dollar.
Unfortunately, I think the price point drives that. Yeah. Like what the value of that thing is. If you're talking about wild tokay geckos, the sort of conditions before importation and the conditions of importation, less so now. I think it's improved dramatically from, certainly over the last half century in terms of survivability and intentionality in terms of sending them safely. But there's no disputing that there's a pragmatism, cynical pragmatism to the care that goes into something based on the price point. Sorry, Dustin, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. We just need to vote with our dollar. And, Dan Mallory is an example of a great importer who brings in, hand-picked animals and top quality animals that are in good conditions over there. And once they come over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, for every Dan Mallory, there's, 2 or 3 of the other stuff. Well, maybe that's an exaggeration. Hopefully that's an exaggeration. Hopefully there's more good ones out there than sketchy ones, but I don't know. It's hard to maintain a positive outlook when, you see some of these tables with just poor quality, animals that are just going to die as soon as they make it out the door, that kind of thing. And where they have no regard for the health of the animal. Now, I'm probably being a little dramatic, and there's probably one of those at maybe, a big show or something, but, unfortunately our whole, not necessarily herpetoculture, but like the pet industry is pretty tied to wild caughts and cheap imports, so they can, appease the soccer mom whose kid's whining for some lizard. She can buy it, it will live a week, and then she can not have that responsibility anymore. It's almost like a win-win for the death trade, I guess, looking at the bleakest aspect of it. But that's hard to stomach sometimes.
Yeah, it makes it a little hard to fight for this side, but
I mean, that's probably the strongest argument on,
Yeah, I mean, I think a key factor too, right, that kind of as to both sides is saying, if you're talking about collecting and trading things that are either dietary or conditional specialists that are, 95 out of 100 are not going to be set up, are not going to be sent to a situation where they'll be able to thrive based on either their dietary needs or the conditions that they require relative to the average pet situation. That's a whole different deal than saying a singular pair of it. I think Dustin will forever be salty with me based on our perception of you and our hosts and things. When you find a pair of mating pyros, doesn't get more locale specific than that. So I think I think that'll always kind of stick with him a little bit.
Yeah, but there's also a good feeling, knowing that they're there, they're supporting the next generation.
Yeah, and you might be able to go back and find some.
100%.
And yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
that's
where they are for sure.
Mm-hmm. And they weren't in the middle of the road, so there wasn't risk of them getting run over. They were well within their habitat, and so I think that was a good move. I would have struggled too. I admit it. Like that would have been a hard thing to pass up, but I don't need more animals to care for. That's for sure. But Yeah, I do like the idea of that. I think that's probably a strong argument on your side is, that locality, knowledge is kind of a fun part of herpetoculture.
Yeah.
Being able to propagate known locality is cool.
You get you get a little keepsake from a great memory.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds you of, kind of that memory in a lot of ways. But, again, I think, that responsibility to be able to let something go is can be very rewarding. To not collect is almost as rewarding as collecting sometimes. And then, there are definitely times where it's probably just fine to collect. And I don't have, any issue with proper, well thought out and kind of targeted collection. I guess another downside in my mind is kind of the ignorant collection, or, I several years ago, somebody called me because I'm, the reptile guy in the neighborhood or whatever. And they said, hey, we collected these cool lizards, but they're not doing great. Can you take them, and see if you can do better with them? And it was a pair of desert horn lizards, that are not going to thrive in captivity, and it's going to be very difficult. And, I took them. I didn't know where they collected them, or I wasn't able to get them back out before it got cold. And so, I had a source of ants, and I was actually trying to try my hand and try to keep some of the Hernandesi, the short-horned mountain horn lizards. And they were doing pretty well and eating well. A couple of the females had babies, so it was kind of a fun little project. But in the end, I messed up on their hibernation and didn't do very well during that time, and ended up losing those animals. So, in the end, my failed experiment resulted in the loss of a couple lizards' lives. So you want to be able to. Obviously, we can't win them all, I guess you could say, but as long as you're going into it with forethought and planning, and not just saying, "Oh, those are cool, I'm going to take them home." I think I'm okay with collection. But if you're just going to say, "Oh, I like that lizard, I'm grabbing it and taking it to my house," I think you probably want to rethink that and not do that. And how do we educate the public, to not just grab and take it just because they like it? Now, that said, when I was a kid, I would do that all the time. Please, Dad, let me take it home. And I had really great parents that said, yeah, go for it. Bring that rattlesnake home, and and that kind of thing. And I had no. I didn't even realize that people made laws that said you couldn't keep a snake at your house, that you found in the desert. So, it's just the ignorance of youth, I guess. My dad probably was too nice, in some instances, but he probably had maybe an inkling that some of them weren't technically legal or whatever. I do remember him asking like a ranger when we were on a state park if we could take one home, and the ranger said no. So he told me I couldn't bring it home, and it was a really nice look. I'm pretty sure it was a con color. It was really beautiful, like faded pink, but I got another one down the road. So like off the state park at a different place, but as a juvenile, and it did great. I had that thing for probably 5 to 10 years and ended up giving it away when I realized it was illegal. So, but yeah, so I don't have a problem with it as long as there's thought and planning involved.
Yeah, it's kind of my thoughts exactly. You need to be responsible for what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, any other cool insights into field collecting or great aspects of it, or have we covered what you had in mind?
Yeah, I think maybe just for the most part, don't do it.
Yeah.
But it's a little hypocritical.
I think the first step is to look for captive bred animals.
Yes.
Like you can usually find most of the stuff that's available in the wild. Now, I will admit that the more craze has kind of ruined a little bit of that. And usually localities go away when there's a morph produced because they just want to produce more of that morph. And so I'm not saying everybody does that, but that seems to be a common problem sometimes, is finding those locality or even, species pure animals if there's a morph involved. So it is nice I do have that. I've been promoting, having a project that doesn't make you any money. That's just a cool animal that you can appreciate, not because it brings you hundreds of dollars, but because it's a cool animal in its own right, and you take the price tag away, and even give those away to friends or family or other people who are interested. So then they're not collecting from the wild or promoting that. So. Yep.
I think the biggest thing is don't do it because you think it's going to be cheaper. Because A, that might not be true, and B, you're certainly not sort of acknowledging both the actual costs that you're probably going to face in terms of challenges with acclimatizing that animal, and B, the externalized cost on the environment, right? So if you're doing it exactly as you both have said, with the intentionality, and that intentionality not reflecting, hey, I don't have to go pay someone money associated with this purchase, as long as that's not the motivation, or much worse, as you laid out, Dustin, that like, oh, I'm going to collect it to then sell it or whatever, which is the double. I'm not paying anything and then trying to get money from it. Then yeah, I think we're all kind of on board with that.
Yeah.
Conscious use.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and maybe we should have got somebody that had kind of an opposite view, because I remember going on a trip to Australia with Rob Roy McGinnis, who worked for Glades Herp and was one of the owners, I guess, of that import business back in the day. And man, that guy could find just about anything. Like, he was a top-notch herper, but always in the back of his mind, like, I wonder how much I could get for this. It's like everything had a price and everything, and I was worried he was going to bring stuff home from Australia or get caught, with something in his bag, and then we'd be labeled some, collection trip or something. And we were like, nobody else in the group had any desire to try to take anything home or, think about how much we could get for it or something. But that was always in the forefront.
You were happy at a different flight, right?
Yeah, exactly. But man, he could find stuff. Like, we'd be going 70 miles down the road and he'd spot a frilled lizard on a tree that was 20 feet off the road, frilled lizard. And we'd stop and run, a quarter of a mile to where he saw this frilled lizard hanging out on the side of a tree. It was pretty amazing. And like, we'd stop for a pit stop or something, and he'd run out into the bush and come back with a couple geckos or something. Look what I found, So he was really good at finding stuff. But yeah. And I'm sure,
the other big caveat. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sure he, he had a genuine love for the animals. Like, he really cared about the reptiles and he was really interested in them. But, there was always that caveat of, ooh, I bet I could get a bit of money for this.
Right. I think the other big caveat is, at least within the sort of this whole conversation, I think we've been assuming we're talking about things that are within their native range. If we're talking about something invasive, so when you were talking about Rob Roy, that reminded me of, hey, what are we saying to Ron right here? And the answer is that if we're talking about an invasive species to be sold into the pet trade so that a teenager can support themselves by collecting Cuban nightingales, that sounds all good to me, man. That's no worries at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and the laws that say you can't collect like a Burmese python out of the Everglades or something seems just ridiculous to me.
It's a little backwards.
Right, you can kill it, but you can't. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I guess that could potentially lead to people, releasing veiled chameleons on their property so they can collect them and sell them to the pet trade, down the road, which is probably not
is more of a herp style.
Yeah. But, I guess I can't say that I haven't been tempted to release some, monitors down in the Southwest to see if we could collect some. That would be terrible. Okay, yeah, I would never do that, just for the record. But how cool would that be to have a spot where you have parentes running around out in the wild in the U.S. that you could go check them out? But anyway, I guess that's the point. They belong where they belong, and if they're invasive, then yeah, go for it. Collect them, get them out of the environment. As long as you're not releasing them, so you can collect them, I guess is the
right.
point
That is an added complication for sure.
Yeah. But that's a great point. Ron definitely was doing the right thing, removing those invasive species out of the wild. And if he could support, his reptile habit, all the more power to him. All right. Any other cool thoughts in the back of your mind there, Rob?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I just feel bad that I think I've kind of stepped on you both and throughout this thing, but we'll get better as it goes. And all thoughts to Chuck, and just keeping the seat warm. So whenever he's good to go, it'll be good. But in the meantime, we'll try and have some fun here. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, no, you did great, and you had brought up some really good points. So thanks for doing this and being here. And this was great. I know Dustin's got to work. He's got to go to work in the middle of the night, so we won't keep him too much longer so he can get some rest or finish cleaning his reptile cages there. But it was good to have you on and good to chat with you again, man.
Yeah, it was good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, always good. So looking forward to herping with you in the near future as soon as things warm up. All right. Any cool things you've seen out there in regards to herpetoculture? Any exciting finds or in the world of reptiles?
Nothing off the top of my head.
That Matt teaching stuff is cool. Yeah, his trip, man. Yeah. I think we're gonna have to try and have him on here to less so to fight, less about fighting, more about hearing all that stuff. Because super jealous. Well, the fight is how jealous we are of what his trip, That's the fight.
Well, it could be another revisit of the Justin method versus the Rob method of the covering.
And I'll be ready for that fight too.
There you go. Sure. Thousands of miles versus a couple 100 miles or something. So yeah. And he did a big drive. He went from Northern Territory all the way to Central Australia.
Kind of both though, right? So to me, that was a combo because it's like the solid stay in two different spots with the big venture in between. So maybe that would be a good topic if we can get him to go for it. So
yeah, and I'm looking forward to the stuff Luke will be releasing soon too from his trip to South Australia. They found some cool stuff. He had some. I mean, he's already posted a few little snippets. I think pictures of the Gillens and did he post some videos of that? That
I'm not sure if it was just hanging out, or like the actual video.
Yeah. That Gillens was just like hanging on the side of the tree, and they're like taking pictures and videos, and it's just like hanging out. And that was my experience too. The first lizard I found I guess it was the second technically, but we were driving from the airport in Alice Springs into the town, and there was a Gillens hanging out on a fence post, and I walked over. And like, I thought it was going to bolt at any second. So I'm taking pictures, taking a step, taking a picture, taking a step. And I got right next to the animal. And I reached over and picked it up, and it just sat there, like, let me pick it up. Wasn't trying to bite or anything. And I'm like checking it out and put it back on the fence post. And then it took off after I put it back. But that was a killer looking animal. It was so beautiful. But yeah, there was just bold. Same thing with a lot of the Eastern collared lizards too. Like you can just walk right up to them and pick them up. And once you get them in hand, they're all like trying to bite you and freaking out. But before you get them in hand, they just kind of let you approach pretty close.
Especially those males, like bold. They'll stand their ground, puff up when you walk towards them. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
All right. Well, get some sleep, and we'll have you back again sometime soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks for being here, and thanks to Rob, and we'll catch you again next week for another Reptile Fight Club. Oh man, there's some empty space for a Chuck quip there. We'll just have a moment of silence. See you later.
See ya. Fight Club.